Hello and welcome to the DrivingMaul show here on New Zealand Sports Radio. Hi, I'm Paul and I'll be your host this morning. And everyone else seems to have gone and got busy. And it looks like I'm going to be on my own this evening. Some of the stuff we're going to run through, the Lions tour of South Africa, and boy, what a toxic tour that is. We'll also have a chat about the Bledisloe Cup that's upcoming and also some of the rescheduling of the games that the All Blacks tests are lined up. The NPC kicks off this weekend, and we've got the Farah Palmer Cup as well, which has been going on. And myself and Stephen Harris have been to a couple of those games already. So that's what we'll be covering. Don't forget, you can always get in touch to chat with me at DrivingMaul on Twitter, or you can obviously you can watch the show live on Facebook and YouTube at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday evening if you listen to the podcast. If you can't catch us live, then obviously you can listen to the podcast as well. Just search New Zealand Sports Radio on your favourite podcatcher. Right, I think that's most of it. And we've got John coming in. We'll let him get his camera set first. Looks like he's going to be in the car studio this evening, but he's wobbling around at the moment. So, yes, the Lions test and the Lions tour, and we've had two tests with the Springboks coming back to win it. You can listen to our post-match reaction of that game. That's available on Facebook and YouTube. It was also on Twitter as well. Went live straight after the final whistle on that one. But yeah, the Springboks really doing a number on the British and Irish Lions in that game. Let's try and bring John in. Hello, John, are you there? You're muted at the moment. And looks like you're driving at the moment. So actually, that's not a good idea.
Almost there, mate. Like a few hundred meters.
Right then, well, I'll drop you off until you finish driving, and then you can come in. Look, this tour, whilst there has been some rugby going on, well, I'll rephrase that. Whilst there have been a whole bunch of rugby players on a pitch, kicking a ball backwards and forwards to each other and jumping up and down, there has been about 2 minutes rugby so far in the two test matches we've had. There really has not been much rugby at all. It's not been great watching. And I tell you, getting up at 4 a.m. in the morning to watch these games has not been, it's not been great. Some key things there that we've been talking about is, there is a lot of kicks. I mean, something like 44 kicks from the South Africans in this one. But one of the things that happened in this first test, I also think, was that it ran way, way longer. There were lots of stoppages, lots of reviews through the TMO, and that meant the greater fitness of the Lions didn't come into effect like it did in that first test. So well done to the South Africans on slowing everything down to their pace, and the Lions are going to have to work on that one going forwards. There's been a lot of comments out there saying that because the game is down at sea level rather than up on the high veld, that this is an advantage for the British and Irish Lions. And to be honest with you, I don't think that's true. You've got to remember that a lot of these South Africans now play overseas in Europe, and the British and Irish Lions were up in the high veld in their training camp. So, and also they are the fitter side. So I think that actually up at altitude would have been advantageous for them rather than down at sea level. So I don't think that is really the case. Normally, obviously, with South African sides who are up there and live and breathe at Joburg or wherever, then it makes a difference. But for sides where they're coming over from overseas, I'm not so sure. John, your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, that's true. But the fact remains that there are some players that are based at the Highveld level, and they have obviously far more experience as South African players of playing in that environment. So from that perspective, and also remember they were stationed up high for a lot of their training, so they were acclimatized to it. So yeah, it was. Warren Gatland he made no bone. He didn't try to hide how pleased he was that all the test matches were going to be played at sea level once that change was made. But it is what it is. These are the extraordinary adaptations we've had to make because of COVID.
No, absolutely. So yes, okay. So if he was happy about it, to me, I'd say I think it would have played. It would have been actually advantageous to the Lions to play at altitude, because to say they are the fitter of the two sides, and that they didn't manage to, and that the pace of that first half really was, as I played into the South African hands. Also meant that if you're losing a player early to injury like they did with Peter Sefton-Toy, again, there's not going to be as much fatigue.
No, it's never, unless you are grossly unfit, it's never advantageous to the team who doesn't play regularly at altitude to play up there. It's always an advantage to the team who's used to it.
Okay, yeah, so
by the way, just to let you know, just very quickly, the altitude of Johannesburg is higher than Denver, which is known as the Mile High City, and always spoken about as being this incredibly high city in the United States. And Johannesburg is higher than Denver by about 100 meters.
Oh, okay. So not that far, but about 10 seconds if you're an Olympian running anyway. I agree. It is a long way up. It is different. That is for sure. This unfortunately, in the last week or so, this tour has turned extremely toxic. First off, we had some. Well, Razi's claiming it's not his account, but the videos that were being produced were very, very similar to the videos that he's produced on his own account before. So, but with Yakko, whatever it's called, then we had an hour-long video from Razi dissecting the refereeing of the first test from a very much one viewpoint point of view. He didn't. So it was a very one-eyed viewpoint. It wasn't balanced in any way, shape, or form. To me, that was very bad for rugby. Seeing having a well, he's director of rugby, but I think he's become director of rugby so that he can be the water boy. To me, he's effectively still the head coach, even though he's not that in name. But to have one of the top coaches dissect a performance like that, I think was very bad for the game, and was a disgusting thing to do. Personally, he's been now cited for this by World Rugby today, but this is way too little, way too late. The horse is well and truly bolted. World Rugby needed to get on top of it straight away. I see a lot of people in South Africa are defending what Razi did. What's your view on this one, John?
I haven't watched the video. You know, it's I'd rather have watched the video before I make a comment, so that I know what I'm commenting on.
Yep.
It is extraordinary. In all the years that I've followed rugby, I've never seen or heard anything like it. And generally, the South African management way over the last, pretty much since Jake White took over in 2003, so we're talking an 18-year odd policy, has been not to say anything about officialdom. And certainly it hasn't been Razi's way before this. So I'd like to see it in its entirety before I make a statement. I'm not saying in scope and in breadth they compare, but nothing was done about Warren Gatlin's complaints when, because of COVID, Morris Jonker had to fill in for the first and second test as the television match official. And he raised a stink before the first test, and all sorts of aspersions. So at that that was also pretty poor. I'm not saying it's of the same scale and the same in depth as a whole video essay for an hour, but that was pretty poor as well. Yeah, there's been a lot about this tour that, let's put it this way, that's not in the spirit of rugby or in the spirit of some of the Olympic athletes and their performances and attitudes and sportsmanship that we've seen so far.
Now, what's been interesting is, because I didn't actually read or see Warren Gatland's comments. Now, and my initial view was that that he shouldn't be talking or questioning that either. Now, from what I've read recently, though, is that the narrative of what he said has changed. What he actually said was that what he actually was questioning was the World Rugby's contingency practice, that it ended up in that situation, rather than questioning Jonker himself. So he didn't have a go at the TMO. He had a go at World Rugby and their processes, rather than saying this. So basically, this guy shouldn't be put in that situation, rather than why is this guy in that situation, which is a great difference.
But it's not the. But it's not a couple of days before the test is not the time to. Sorry. Oops, there goes my phone. Hold on a second. There we go. Sorry about that. I was trying to say.
I agree with that. And apparently it was also done off camera, which is different again. So the other one that's been brought up is that he questioned whether Faf should be red carded in the South Africa A game as well.
There's in the lead up to the first test, he puts his cards on the table and has a go at the officialdom. And I'm not excusing Russie. That's not the point. I'm just saying that sets a kind of a tone that really is. It really seems to be contrary to the spirit that Lions rugby was played in for many decades, but it doesn't seem to have been that way ever since that infamous 07 tour, which got pretty nasty. Was it 07?
The Clive Woodward one was also
that's the one. That's the one I'm thinking of. Was that 03? Clive Woodward.
Well, it was 12 before the
05. 05.
Yeah, the 05. Yeah.
05. The 05 tour is where it just seemed the sort of atmosphere around Lions tours seemed to shift from winning hearts, which I'm not saying they're set out to do. I'm not saying they're focused on that more than winning rugby, but they just seem to be something about the Lions that won people over in the country where they were visiting. And it just seems to have shifted somehow. Maybe it's something to do with professionalism. I don't know. Anyway, it just I read an article today, actually, which I was meaning to send to you, Paul, about from a South African correspondent, been a rugby writer for many years, talking about this very fact. It just seems to be this thing with Lions tours since going back to that tour, where things are just. They're not the same as certainly I remembered Lions tours used to be.
Absolutely, that tour was was a mess. I think they had improved in the last round, the South Africa, Australia, New Zealand ones after that, but this one seems to have gone backwards again. I things like everyone questioning whether the South Africa A was actually a fourth test match and it was a full strength box side or not. Then Rassie asking if you could have another South Africa A game and the Lions turning it down. Yeah, it's just not been it's not been a good tour from either side, to be honest.
Well, I mean, that's a really good example that you bring up. So the Lions come to a country that is being ravaged by the pandemic, that has gone through civil unrest in no small part because of the effect of that pandemic on the population. They haven't played a test match up until the first Georgia test. They lose the second Georgia test because of COVID in both camps, and the Georgia coach winds up in intensive care fighting for his life. And South Africa plays some players, first choice players in the South Africa A team. So what? These are extraordinary times. We are fortunate to even get test matches being played. And then they have the audacity to ask for another South Africa A game to help get ready. How dare they? When their country is being ravaged. It's just like so small-minded when this was the time for let's play rugby to unite. Let's play rugby in a spirit of winning is not everything. Let's play rugby in a spirit that it was intended when Lions tours were first set up as a spectacle. I understand it's not the Barbars. I understand that. But just the lack of understanding and the win at all costs mentality, very disappointing.
Now, and I know you'll say that from a Lions point of view. I think it's from both sides. I think both sides have had that mentality. I think Razzie's had that mentality as well. To be honest.
Yeah. I mean, I think both sides have got a lot to answer for in both sets of management who set the tone. Yep. The Lions could have boarded that plane and said, you know what, we're going to a country that's going through unbelievably difficult times. As tough as it has been in the UK, it pales in comparison to where we're going. We can bring a light of, albeit entertainment, albeit sport. We can bring something to that country rather than let's win it at all costs. South Africans has fallen into the trap of thinking the same way. And it's just really disappointing, that this could have been something that really lifted spirits in South Africa.
Yep. Just some comments in the live chat. Nocturnal Rights. Both teams have wonderful attacking talent that we're not seeing. The Oz versus French series seemed to have been a better watch. Yep, absolutely. It has been.
Especially the French. Especially the French.
On that one. Aaron says the mystic of Lions tours definitely has gone. Yes, this tour should just have been cancelled. It's been a disaster.
It's been a money grab. That's what it's been.
Yep.
And I understand why, because the South African Rugby Union was desperate, absolutely desperate. I mean, we cannot understate how far up the creek New Zealand Rugby pushed South African Rugby without any paddle and said, we couldn't care less about you when they set up the Super Rugby system and cut South Africa out. South African Rugby, as a point of losing all of its players, there's simply no income, right? So this Lions tour and the television rights were absolutely vital. So I understand the desperation that they were in. But it's just simply about a desperate need for money to try and sustain the game in some manner at all possible in South Africa. And very sadly, often these decisions are just based around money. These are the things that come out of it. And this, I don't think it's just this tour. I don't think it's just 07. I was here for the last tour in New Zealand, and it also got very ugly in the press. And it also got lots of mudslinging and lots of to and fro between people, and then it also was like that before that in Australia. Albeit that Gatland won the last test convincingly, there was lots of stuff going on and allegations being made of certain things in the build up to in the warm up games. It's very unfortunate.
Yeah, I don't remember them being as acrimonious as this. Maybe that's just rose-tinted glasses and remembering the good things rather than the bad things. I really enjoyed the Lions tour here to New Zealand. It's the first. I went to the Melbourne Test match in Australia, and also the the Rebels versus Lions game there. But yeah. Now I'll take issue with you on the New Zealand sort of selling South Africa up without a paddle. I mean, South Africa's been talking about going to Europe for many years.
No, Paul, the press has been talking about South Africa going to Europe for many years. But for 25 years, South Africa didn't. The press has been speaking about it for a good 10 to 12 years. Doesn't mean that the South Africans were going that way. The heart and soul of South African rugby fans is not with Europe. It's with the All Blacks. And way down the line with Australia, but it's very much tied to New Zealand. And yeah, South Africa was in a desperate time, and then they've had no choice. Their professional rugby system would absolutely have collapsed if the Lions, Sharks, Bulls, and the Stormers had not signed up to compete in Europe in some way. There was nowhere for them to go.
I think actually it's been good for both sets. I think it's a good idea. I think it's good for the South Africa to get into a time zone and get access to that European money. And I think it's good for and I think it's better for the New Zealand and Australia not to be playing games in the middle of the night, which no one cares about. So I think it's actually worked out well for both sets once we come out of COVID. I think it's going the right way. So, Argentina, on the other hand, well, yeah, they've just been hung out to dry. But
absolutely, they've been treated abysmally, absolutely abysmally, right?
All we can hope there is that the new Super League Sud-America or something like that, where it's called, grows quickly. It needs to grow. It's obviously it's below Major League Rugby at the moment, so it's got a long way to go. But at least it exists, and hopefully that'll grow over time. But anyway, so that's the Lions talk. Look, so we've got the final test this weekend. I will be up at 4:00 in the morning, and we will do a 6 a.m. Post-match reaction, whatever the result. So do join us for that. All I can hope for is we actually get some more rugby than we've had for the opening two games, and we actually get to see players like Colby,
Mapimpi,
like
Finn Russell, maybe
Anthony Watson, like Hogg.
Will Finn Russell play? Paul?
Will Finn Russell play? Who knows? This, I guess, it comes down to what does Warren Gatland do? Does he go and say, okay, I'm going to rip up the book and go and try and play expansive, or do I just double down what I've been doing for the first two and just go for it again? We'll just have to see. If it's go for it again, then Russell doesn't get anywhere near it. Brent is saying the Lions starting 15 should change quite dramatically. If you think that all those players that haven't been in the first two tests haven't played for 2 weeks, then actually I can't see it doing so. I can't see it changing dramatically. I can see one or two changes. Maybe Liam Williams coming in at 15. And obviously Carl Sinclair could be banned for biting, but we'll have to wait and see. But no, I can't see dramatic change. I think we've got a third test pretty much like the first two.
I think the problem that Warren Gatland faces is that the style of rugby that he chose to play absolutely feeds into the South African psyche, and the weakness that South African has overall as a rugby nation is when faced with a completely different style of play to what he has espoused. So the perfect example is John Alomu. Pick him first in a world all-time team against any other country in the world, barring South Africa, because he never scored a try against them. Highest try scorer against South Africa in history, Christian Cullen. Completely different type of player that played into space, deceptive, change of pace, step, understanding just the nuances of the game rather than sheer brute force and power. And what he's done is he's put all his cards on the deck to play a brute force and power game, and that just absolutely is where South Africa wants to play. And
Yep.
I think it would have been brave. I think it would have been fraught with the possibility of failure, but I think he would have had much more chance of success of winning this series, as well as winning the battle of hearts and minds and the plaudits for what it would mean for the game if he'd embraced the style that had played off Finn Russell and embraced a style where the All Blacks will attack South Africa in space.
Now, I mean,
And require a
to be fair to
completely
him,
different response from them.
Finn Russell's been injured, so he couldn't even play off him. So he hasn't had that
Well,
choice.
but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Playing
yeah,
that
I agree.
style of actually allowing Stuart Hogg to be part of the game. I rate Hogg highly, but you need to play him in the correct manner. You know, so I think that would have been a far greater challenge to South Africa if they had decided to play to space. Because if he plays this style, man for man, you would select more South Africans in a team to play this style than the Lions, especially if you start going to bench depth. And you take
But
like all the locks available and all the loose forwards available and all the tight row forwards available for this style of play that he wants, that Gatland wants to play.
yeah, I mean, even so, they still edged the first half by 3 points. Can they keep it up? I mean, so anyway, people heard our reaction to it and can go back and watch it again on Sunday. There's a lot more to talk about, so I do want to move on. Brent's made some things like, yeah, Price maybe ahead of Murray, but I still don't think we're going to have a mass change and a change of style. I think we're going to end up, unfortunately, we're going to end up with the same arm wrestle we've had for the first two test matches. But we do have a reprieve though, John. We have the Bledisloe Cup this weekend, which we know will be a different style of rugby. With the Wallabies up against the All Blacks at Eden Park, a place where the Wallabies haven't won, well, in a lifetime, it feels like. And also they get to play back-to-back tests at Eden Park over 2 weekends due to COVID and obviously the closing of the travel bubble. That means that Wellington will not be getting any test matches this year. Birvana has put paid to the Wellington having that second test. So yes, a real a beer festival in the stadium means that's why it's not down there. And then they're heading over to Perth to play the third Bledisloe Cup game before playing the Argentina twice in Australia. They're still hoping to play the 2 South Africa games in New Zealand, but obviously that's going to require the travel bubble opening back up again. So Simon Hughes says Wellington is not into sport. That's a bit harsh, but there you go. Not so much. I almost forgot about the Bledisloe Cup. It has been a pretty quiet build-up to it. I think partially COVID and knowing about that is part of it. One player that I think probably should be stood down for this, and unfortunately, is Frizzell. He's got himself involved in an assault charge in a bar a couple of weeks relatively recently, and he was stood down for 2 games. But personally, I think he should be stood down for the Rugby Championship Series at least while he gets counselling, etc., which he says he's doing. There was the actual assault in the bar, but then also he went on to Instagram afterwards and then had an expletive rant at somebody saying, "Hey, you better effing hide. You're messing with the effing wrong person." So clearly not a good look for Shannon, as Brent says. And as I say, hopefully, I don't think he should be involved in this. If for no other reason than his head's not going to be in the right place, and he needs to deal with off-field issues. John?
Yeah, certainly. You've got to. I mean, the modern term is look at the optics. the way that it appears. And that might sound unfair when you look at the strict definition of the law. But this is a public-facing business. Sport is a public-facing business, and it's not as if New Zealand doesn't have depth. But yeah, until it's properly resolved, it's not a good look to have him playing.
Now, in time to play says should be banned for a long time. Hideous details. Look, we've only had one side of the story, so at this point, I'm not going to say necessarily should be banned for a long time. As Nocturnal Right says, apparently Frizzell has been stood down. Okay, I missed that, but thanks for letting us know. It's become trial by media, one-sided articles being put out. Well,
yeah. See, this is the danger, Paul, is that someone is innocent until proven guilty. And certainly we've been through a time in our history where concerns have been raised by victims that haven't been listened to. But at the same time, the standard of the law is innocent until proven guilty. But that doesn't mean that somebody can't be stood down until something is resolved. And that's something that maybe rugby and some of the other sports should consider. In the NFL, they call it the commissioner's exempt list. So somebody is stood down without losing their pay and without losing their game checks, but they do not play until something is resolved, and they're only banned when that is resolved and they're found to be guilty of something. But in a forward public-facing business, you've got to be aware of the message that you're sending.
And as Aaron says, apparently it's he hasn't been stood down, so it's more that he doesn't think Frizzell is in the right headspace, so won't be considered until he thinks he's ready. Absolutely agree. Yeah, and look, we're talking about professional sport here again, where we talk about the top 2 inches being important and it being a matter of small percentages. This is going to be a small percentage that needs to be that would make him not play at his best anyway. We saw what happened with Aaron Smith after the toilet gate and how his game deteriorated and took a while to sort out while he sorted out his off-field issues. So hopefully that I think it needs to be sorted out first. As Simon says, NRL has a no-fault stand-down policy. Yeah, that's affect that. I guess that's what we're kind of really saying, isn't it? So talking of selection this weekend, well, look, Ethan de Groot's been called in for injury. TJ Perenara, I don't think is going to be considered for this one yet because he has to play an NPC game first. So I think we will be seeing Webber and Aaron Smith in that one. I guess the selection question mark is going to be around really that the loose trio and who they put together there. I'm guessing we'll go Akira Ioane at 6 with Hardy Surveyor at 7 and I've gone blank as Luke Jacobson, at 8 is my expectation, but Dalton Papali'i has been playing very well. You could easily have him at 7 and Hardy Surveyor at 6. Sorry, at 8. So we'll just have to wait and see. But I mean, as you say, good options even without Frizzell being available.
Certainly, if you're playing Australia, certainly.
The centre combination also, I think David Havili did very well. So I think we'll probably see him at 12. Finally finding a place in the All Blacks for what a great player he is.
Sorry, say that again.
David Havili, the Crusaders fullback, finally looks like he'll get a run at 12 on that one. And then the only question then is Rico Ioane, not Akira, Rico or Anton Brown at 13. And then you've got your back 3 combinations to again. Do you have does Reese play 11 or 14? Do you have Bridge? The DMAC is probably apparently going to start 15 with Geordie Barrett on the bench. So then, does the right wing become Will Jordan? So again, options. and which is, I think, any good. It's a combination where I don't actually mind who they play. I'm happy with those combinations. It's not like where you're going, oh my word, we're searching, we're scratching out to find someone to fill a jersey, which I think is so to my mind, John.
Yeah, it's just really interesting to me in that it just seems that we're in a time where, and maybe this will change, but barring players like Bowden Barrett, definitely Aaron Smith, Brodie Retallick, Sam Whitelock coming towards the end of his career, sort of the last 25% maybe of his active career, but especially with Sam Cane not being on the field, it's not as if we're seeing an All Black squad littered with players where you go, oh wow. Just looking at that loose forward trio you named, it wasn't that long ago that the All Blacks would have a starting trio of Richie McCaw, Kieran Reid, and yeah, Jerome Kano. And that, I mean, that is that is three sort of Hall of Fame level players in one team, in one unit, and a young Sam Whitelock and Brodie Retallick, and Ma'a Nonu and Conrad Smith, so, and Dan Carter and Aaron Smith, a young Aaron Smith, and you know what I'm saying, and Kevin Mealamu coming off the bench, where there just seemed to be a slew of legendary players in the one squad. And when you look at the All Blacks at the moment, and I'm not saying that there can't be some coming through, I think Caleb Rolfe, is it Caleb Rolfe? Caleb Clark has tremendous potential. But when you see the players now, I think that there are teams like I know the Springboks think that they've got a chance. They think that they've got a chance to play the All Blacks and beat them on home soil. Yeah, it's an interesting time, and it's an interesting transition time in All Black rugby.
Yeah, and we don't think of All Blacks going through a rebuilding process, but look, they are. There's a lot of players in there with very few caps. Even your Jack Goodhues are only in the high teens, low 20s, and he's a nailed-on starter. But there's also a lot of players. I think one of the things is that people question: what is Ian Foster's first choice 15, or even first choice 23? We just don't know. There's lots of good players. Will Jordan has a potential to be a superstar. Bridge also is a very clever footballer who could be a kind of Ben Smith kind of player to my mind. There's lots of players who potentially can be.
Ben Smith. Think of Ben Smith at the back as well. There's another name that was for me, by the way, over a 5-year period. For me, the best rugby player in the world over a 5-year period was Ben Smith. So.
Yep. So it's I think, and that's the thing is, I think we need to see, with the World Cup being 2 years away, we need to start seeing that 15 and getting that 15 playing together. Obviously, injuries are going to stop that with players like Jack Goodhue, but injury dependent. I think we need to start seeing a more settled 15 or match day 23 from Ian Foster and get some idea as to what is that best team, because there aren't that many games left, and the combinations just have not had the 20-30 games together that well, I mean, if you talk about Nonu and Conrad Smith, the 100 games together, but they just don't have those combinations there, which I think is something that we need to that we'll need to see. So interesting selections from Ian Foster. Thursday, it's 7:05 p.m. No doubt to be live on Sky. Is the announcement of that one. Again, we'll be live straight after that game with post-match reaction on Saturday evening, so do join us for that. And obviously, I'll be commenting on Twitter at DrivingMaul as well.
I feel for Foster, because he takes a lot of flack, and it's not as if you can, point around New Zealand and go, oh, look at these obvious selections that he's left out of his squad. Here is absolute standout player that should be selected, and he hasn't done it. And he doesn't have the kind of material. He has inexperience. I mean, the Springboks had a player go through 50 caps last week, a prop. They've got another 50 cap player coming through this week. They've got multiple players going into the second 50 of their test match experience. And they've played together, and they've developed. They're in that sort of All Black phase of around about, I suppose, 2012, when it comes to experience and time together, sprinkled with some youth and enthusiasm, among that, which is what you need. And I feel for Foster, because he's trying to find these matches, and he's trying to find this magic without having sort of these obvious stars that he can just drop into his back line. Or, I mean, take the young locks. Where are the dynamic, besides Scott Barrett, where are the dynamic, impactful young locks that we used to see 10 years ago, just coming through in their droves, Yeah, just some thoughts.
Yeah, no, it's. I think one of the problems with Tupu Vai has done very well coming through as a young lock, but you look at some. I guess the problem really is that there's a logjam. You've got Sam Whitelock 32, Patrick Tuipulotu 28, Brady Retallick 30, Scott Barrett 27, that are basically blocking anybody else getting in. So
I didn't actually realize Scott Barrett was that old. I thought he was even younger than that. Not that 27 is old, but I thought he was, 24 maybe. But yeah, you've got 32 and 30, 27 and 28. But where are the youngsters? Where's the young Brody Retallick?
Well, hopefully it's Tupu Vai, but we'll have to wait and see. I mean, he's 21, and I think what we're also seeing here is that if you're not in that, there has been a talent drain in New Zealand. It's not as bad as South Africa or Australia have suffered, but there's definitely a talent drain. You think about, Lamapi's heading overseas now, but Lima Sopoanga's gone. I've gone blankers to the Highlander Centre, begins with an F. There was also Fekitoa as well. All these guys would add good depth to this squad.
Absolutely, great point.
But they've all headed overseas because they don't see themselves as first choice, and therefore the money is better over there. So it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, we do have the saviour who is coming back, coming over. Sorry, Roger Tuiofasiak, who is joining.
That should be good.
Joining Auckland. So it's going to be interesting to see how he goes with the in the NPC.
Yes.
This season. And talking of the NPC, that kicks off this weekend. I will be down in Bay of Plenty for their opening game, and I've just gone blank as to who they're playing this weekend. But I'll be on Sunday, so I'll be bringing post-match reaction from the Bay of Plenty versus Tasman, which will be a cracking game. Stephen Harris is going to be covering North Harbour for us. He's going to cover North Harbour versus Waikato in the NPC, and he'll also get North Harbour versus Taranaki in the Farah Palmer Cup as well. So keep an eye out on New Zealand Sports Radio Facebook page for that. We don't really have time to go through kind of the squads and things, but one of the oh wow, Dr. Wright says I've got a feeling about Samisoni being number one pick for the hooker by next year. Well, that is a hot call. I think getting past Cody Taylor and Dane Coles is a very, very big ask. Aaron's going to be.
I think Cody Taylor is really playing amazing rugby the last 2 seasons. Amazing rugby.
And for a person who was accused of going to be a one-match wonder when he went across to Fiji for that All Blacks test, he's done very well for himself with his 58 caps. Ashwin and Aaron, they'll be both at Auckland versus Canterbury, but so we won't have media passes for them, so they won't be able to produce post-match interviews, unfortunately. But we will have for those other games.
Isn't Aaron an Auckland fan?
Yes, he is. Yep.
Why would you want to go see your team clubbed like baby seals?
Oh, dearie me. No. Look, Auckland in the final last year, losing to Tasman. They're in a good shout, and also the opportunity to see RTS for the first time. Will he actually start, or will he be in the matchday squad this weekend?
I wish I could say I was sorry, Aaron, but it wouldn't be true.
Yes. Nocturnal rights, let's put lazy fibre on it. If we look at the Premiership, I mean, the top four should be Auckland, Canterbury, Bay of Plenty, and Tasman. The same top four as we had last year, I think, from memory. So I think that's Waikato sneaked into the top four last year. But I think to me, those four are going to be favourites there. And then Hawke's Bay, Wellington, and Waikato, I think will be fighting it out to avoid relegation. In all honesty, there, Hawke's Bay also going to be favourite for relegation, having been promoted last year. But having interviewed the coaches down there last season, look, they are very. It is a good setup they've got down there, and it'll be interesting to see how they go.
By the way, where is Liam Squire playing? At Tasman again?
Good question.
Only the best for you, Paul.
I'm pretty sure that's where he would be. It would make it obviously would make sense for him to be down there again.
Because
yes,
his mental health is the most important thing. We recognize that. But I'm just saying, as a player, he is a world-class talent. If he's ready to play again on the international stage, he really is. I think he would have made a substantial difference in that match that they lost the semi-final against England. Not saying he would have turned the game, but I think he makes a huge difference to the All Black loose forward trio if he's available.
He might not be playing this year.
So in which case, my heart goes out to him, because if he's not playing this year, then obviously he must be dealing with some issues, and I want wish nothing but the best for him, and I pray that it goes well with him. But a great rugby talent.
Yep. Looks like he's not signed for Tasman. So I'm assuming that he probably is is not
sure
going to be playing this year.
We're pulling for you, Liam.
Absolutely, we wish him the best. Because he was with the Highlanders, so maybe I'm just quickly checking Otago to make sure that he's not to see if he's been named down there. But I think it's been. I don't think he is being currently there. In the Championship, then we've got Northland, North Harbour, Otago, Counties, Taranaki, Manawatu, and Southland. So North Harbour, the team getting relegated. So can they bounce straight back up? New coaching setup there. It'll be interesting to see. Otherwise, Otago, I know last year were gunning for promotion, and that getting anything short of promotion was going to be a failure for them. So obviously they didn't manage that last year. So they'll be there or thereabouts. And Counties and Taranaki, two sides. Well, Counties have been recently in the Premiership. Taranaki, and with a new head coach from the ex-Chiefs forwards coach. I've gone blank as to his name. It's going to be interesting to see which of those Championship sides. But it does seem to be, for my mind, a bit of a gap between those Premiership and Championship sides there. In all honesty, you've not got your Wellington down there, or those sort of sides that you kind of like. Oh, that should be a Premiership team in that one. But yeah, in the live chat, everyone's saying Otago clear favourites in that one to get promoted. So expect to see them at the sharp end. Oh, and also Matt Fanders is back for Otago, one of my favourite players to interview.
There's certain ones that give you gold, right?
There's or the ones that or just sort of appear to be a little bit more happy to see you than others, who kind of recognise you and are kind of oh yes, this will be an interesting chat.
He's your Ruby Tui, Paul.
My Ruby Tui. He's not as good as her. Let's be honest on that one.
No, he's not nearly as good looking, that's for sure.
So I to walk around Bunnings and Warehouse today and saw no promotion for the competition, just a fundraiser for the local club teams. Yeah, interesting. I Mitre 10 used to get behind it, and actually, yeah, you'd see the provincial colours on the local stores. So yeah, because I think that Bunnings done a very good move by calling it the NPC rather than trying to call it the Bunnings Cup. So I think that's been a clever move by them, and also I think it's been a clever move by them to go for what is a very local competition when we all know they're an Australian company, and support local and buy local is such a big theme at the moment. So I can see why they've gone for the NPC in that kind of move. I did do.
Maybe they're hoping to mess it up so that Australia can have a chance to actually win something.
I don't think they're going to try and mess it up, but
except the swimming pool at the Olympics, but yeah.
So I did do a supporter special looking at New Zealand Rugby's choice of sponsors. You can check that out at patreon.com/NZ Sport Radio to become a supporter of New Zealand Sport Radio on that one. Not trying to see Otago have some bad luck with injury over props. Yeah, look, I'm looking at a lot of a few of the announcements. You're seeing pretty much every squad mentioning 2 or 3 players who are not available due to season-ending injuries already. We've not even started, which is really sad. So, I mean, Manawatu have lost their captain. The scrum half has gone blank as to his name now, off the top of my head. Already teams have are missing players, which I think, which is really, obviously a sad place to be. Obviously, the person I'm thinking of is Jamie Booth, who's injured for the season already. So that's very sad on that one.
Do we talk about injuries? What was the aftermath of the Lions test? Do we know? Have we heard definitively if Peter Steph Tutoy is available, Faf de Klerk's available? Any of the other injuries on the Lions? Is everybody fit to go?
No, we'll find out tomorrow morning because in the middle of the night our time they will be announcing both squads. Okay. So it's very early in the week when you consider because it's only Tuesday that they're announcing squads, whereas for a Saturday game, whereas you're looking at the All Blacks not announcing their squad for a Saturday game until Thursday because you don't have to announce until 48 hours out. But the Springboks have been announcing it in particular, and the Lions have now matched it as to naming their squads really early in the week, which is great from a media point of view because we get to talk about it. If you leave it to the end of the week, we kind of run out of time. So we should know tomorrow morning who is and who isn't.
It makes a lot more sense because you know that they're running that starting selection on Tuesday. On Tuesday, they're running that starting selection in practice. So, it's quite often the team gets leaked anyway.
Yep, no, absolutely, you're right. Foster's already said he knows his team. I think the team know who they are, but he's not going to announce it to the media until Thursday. unfortunately.
Maybe it saves him having to come up with something to say at Thursday's press conference. Now he can announce a team, and it saves him talking to the media about a bunch of stuff that he has to think about.
Oh, maybe. Simon makes a good point here about actually that Australia does benefit from this competition because there's a whole bunch of now with the NRC no longer happening in Australia, we've got a whole bunch of players coming over. So players like Solomone Kata will be turning out for Auckland, the ex-league player, for example. He should be a cracking person to watch. There was somebody up in Northland. I can't remember who it was now. But there is a sprinkling of about 5 to 10 Australian Super Rugby players who have come over, and will be playing. Also, down in Canterbury, because obviously Canterbury have got such a weak squad, they've brought in Jack Debrasini from Japan, Waisaki Naholo, who's back from Europe, will be playing for them. Yes, a couple of players coming in there who are doing that, and also for Waikato, you got players like James Tucker, who was over in. I thought he went overseas, but he seems to be back again. Now I thought he got a contract in Australia. Obviously wrong person. Aaron says Kata was an Auckland schoolboy rugby player. Yep, he was, but he's now playing. I said there's a number of Super Rugby players from Australia who are coming over because
so did the Australian provincial competition go the way of all flesh?
Yep. So the Fiji Drua no longer have a team in that as well, and hence the Fiji Drua are trying to get into Super Rugby next year.
Right.
But still on a conditional license, hasn't gone unconditional yet. So yes, that tournament has unfortunately gone, which means all the Super Rugby players who are not playing international rugby in Australia effectively have got nothing to do.
Okay, and this fell apart because of lack of sponsorship.
Lack of funding and lack of interest. Yep.
Okay.
And I think COVID again.
Yeah, that aligning with Australia, New Zealand's decision to align primarily with Australia, really showing to be a really good call.
Yeah. So that's NPC will. I'll try and bring out some predictions this week. I know I've not been doing predictions for a while, folks, but I'll try and improve that. As I say, myself and Stephen have been around the grounds for the Farah Palmer Cup. I was at Bay of Plenty versus Waikato last weekend, and the weekend before I was at the Counties Manukau versus Bay of Plenty game. And some of the sort of and Stephen Harris was up at Northland versus Manawatu at the weekend. Some of the chatter that we're hearing around those traps is that the Women's Super Rugby competition will be happening next year.
Awesome.
Now, it's been rumoured. Obviously, it's been mentioned as a bargaining chip for the old Silver Lake deal, saying if we don't get Silver Lake money, we can't afford to do it. That appears to maybe not be entirely true, and I think it's more a kind of part of the old media war, hearts and minds thing. But it looks it looks like that is happening next year. What shape or form that's going to take, no idea. Will it include the Australian teams? Because Australia's had a women's Super Rugby competition for a couple of years now. Or will it just be in New Zealand? Will Moana Pacifica be asked to put a women's team in? Unlikely at this stage, but it looks like it will actually be going ahead, even if it's 4 teams with just one in the South Island and then Wellington, or then Hurricanes, Chiefs, and Blues. We'll wait and see.
Well, I think it's worth just mentioning now as we finish up the show that what we haven't spoken about, it was the great win by the ladies at the Olympics. and they really performed superbly. And Fiji was clearly the second best team in that competition because they came so close to knocking out the Lady All Blacks in the semi-final, and
Or the
so maybe
Black Ferns.
the Black Ferns, right? They came so close to knocking out the Black Ferns in the semi-final, so maybe there is a lot of scope for a team from the Pacific nations to play in a women's Super Rugby tournament. But I just want to commend the Black Ferns for not only winning, but the style of play, the camaraderie, the connections, the respect for the opposition, which really stood out as an exemplar and really cast some shade onto the behavior of the Springboks and the All Blacks in how they honored their opponents, and just all around a tremendous competition, tremendous skill. A lot to be proud of as New Zealanders for how that team performed.
Yeah, and it was wonderful having them in the Farah Cup last year and getting to talk to a few of them in post-match interviews was fantastic. They are wonderful. Yeah, they're great ambassadors for their sport. They talk really well. They've got time for people. They really have been good. I'm generally not a sevens person. That's why it didn't occur to me to cover it, to be honest. Fiji and China were impressive. China again, a team not a country that we don't associate with women's rugby on the whole, up and coming in that one. And you're right, John. That great win by the Black Ferns and done in a great style as well, both on and off the pitch. Simon's just got one question. He says, ask me about the atmosphere at the Bay of Plenty ground. It looked poor on the television. Look, it's very much a club. Oops, looks like I've lost John. It's very much a club game ground. It's not at one of the bigger grounds, so the TV is not going to be good. Free entry. There was one section of fans who were dressed all up in hippie gear, which was very good fun, and they were getting into it. So there were people who were getting into it, but they are small crowds, and so there isn't going to be much atmosphere or much noise. It's a matter of growing and figuring out how to grow the sport, both in playing numbers, depth, and also in crowd numbers and interest as well. And what will follow with that is obviously the financial side of it as well. So there you go, folks. Thank you very much for joining the DrivingMaul show. We'll be back next Tuesday at 8 p.m. as also, I say, straight after the All Blacks versus the Wallabies on Saturday night and the Springboks versus the Lions on Sunday morning. Also, I'll be at the Bay of Plenty versus Waikato. I think it was, wasn't it, for the opening round of the NPC. Bay of Plenty versus Tasman for the opening round of the NPC. And Stephen will be at North Harbour versus Waikato for that first round of the NPC, and also that North Harbour versus Taranaki in the Farah Cup as well. So do follow all that. Thank you very much, folks, and have a great week.